Okay, it's saying we're live. I'm just waiting for the video feed to come in, and then we'll get started. And there we are, with the delays caught up to us. So I love everybody who's watching. I love every week we start with this, and I'm always like narrating how we're getting started, and I'm certain that we're already live, and it's like they're. I don't know. It's just like I don't know if this makes us look cool and hip because we're kind of underground, or just horribly unprofessional. I haven't
Well,
decided yet.
Eric, the whole unprofessional aspect of it is what makes it fun for me because my life is so boring. But this is my Fast and the Furious movie of
Oh
the day.
right, excellent.
You
Yeah,
know,
this
this
is
is
this is
excitement,
Fate of the Calamity or something.
adrenaline,
Whatever's the most recent one.
and the
In any
best part is
case,
I get to be a backseat, and let you handle it on
that's
your side.
right. That's right. Yeah, you get to
Yeah,
enjoy watching me make a fool out of myself.
so it's great. It's like I'm watching the movie, so that's cool.
Well, in any case, introductions time. It's 9:30 approximately on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast, and it's a Monday night. So that means it's the weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how you doing on this wonderful late summer, soon, please God, soon fall weather time of year?
Not getting into too many details. Let's just say that my health is good. I feel good. So, what else can I really say? I'm
Hey.
hoping on your side you're okay.
Yeah, yeah, for the most part. Glad I'm not in California right now, where you guys are apparently experiencing the hottest weather
Hmm.
in the history of Los Angeles County,
I
which
did not
is
know that we broke records, but jeez,
Woodland
that's not
Hills hit
good.
121 today.
Oh my gosh! Wow, it's a good thing I just have hunkered down and stay in our place and don't interact with the outside world unless I have to for groceries.
I
Today was
know,
not
right?
good.
Man, alive. Yeah, I saw
Wow.
121. I'm like, I warm my pizza in a convection oven at that temperature.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well,
So,
hmm.
but yeah, in any case, glad to hear that you're managing to beat the heat a little bit, and they managed to not have to do any blackouts in your neck of the woods. So that's good to
Yeah, that would
hear.
have been a really boring stream tonight if
Yeah,
we
it
were
would have
talking
been.
about.
It would have been. Yeah. But in any case, wow. Okay, so that was a long and overwrought and introduction. But we're back as usual. I need to give you the ability to share your screen because we're
Yeah,
going
let me
to
go.
continue working on Mitchell's house.
Yes,
And
indeed.
this week we don't have a special guest. It's just us. Steve is we've put him back in the special safe that we keep him in for special occasions, and we'll let him out again at some point.
Maybe. Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe.
But it was
We never
fun. I had
know.
a really good time last night.
Yeah, it was fun hanging out with Steve.
Yeah,
It's been a minute since I last seen him or talked to him, so it was good to just catch up and talk
the
random
last time
stuff.
I saw Steve in person was at your wedding, so that
Oh,
was
really?
yeah. So that was a minute. I mean,
Yeah, that was like 3 years ago, pretty much.
yeah, it
So
was a while.
yeah,
So
so
yeah, it was good to see Steve. But in any case, so here we are. We're back at Mitchell's house, and I know where we left it. We were talking about sort of the architecture of the space, and I think we
yes.
ended sort of the conversation on Steve's special photo reveal. But the last thing that we were talking about in terms of Mitchell's house was like what we could do inside the attic area and things of that nature, which is a little off topic, but I think it's relevant. I mean, I think Steve brought up a good point, and um, I'm after talking about it, I'm really doubling down on the notion that this is a house that he's sort of taken over, right?
Hmm.
This isn't a house that he specially constructed. Whenever Mitchell came into Dry Gulp Gorge, this, for whatever reason, house was available, and he just sort of occupied it. And so as a result, because Mitchell's life is so much about his craft, I guess you can call it a craft,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
his time at the Prickly
Yeah.
Pear, that the house is, it really retains the look of the previous owner rather than Mitchell putting any specific spin on it, aside from the small touch of the clock, which, of course, I think fits pretty well into his. Again, I'm hesitant to say narcissistic, because
Yeah,
he's.
we're gonna have to, you as a writer especially, we're gonna have to walk this fine line
It
because
is, yeah, because I mean, in my head, I don't see Mitchell as a narcissist,
uh-huh.
right? Like he doesn't use people, or rather, he doesn't have any sociopathic tendencies at the very least, right? Like
Uh-huh.
he's
Yeah.
very desperate for affection, and he's got deep insecurities, right? So that's definitely not a trait of a sociopath, but he is very self-centered. But I've never imagined him at the level of being like narcissistically self-centered, like shutting other people down, in favor of aggrandizing himself, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
I think to me, Mitchell aggrandizing himself unjustifiably would actually betray the authenticity of what he's looking for.
Hmm.
In my mind, Mitchell, what I guess the apotheosis of his existence is, and this actually there is a background story reason which we won't talk about, but we know
Yeah.
he needs that genuine laugh, right? He needs
Yeah.
for his audience to genuinely appreciate the stories and the jokes that he's telling. And so in that way he can't be a narcissist because he has to actually genuinely get that response from people.
So so is he okay, so he's definitely an extrovert. I
Yes.
mean, he has to be an extrovert, but he's also insecure.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I know a lot of extroverts who are wildly insecure.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, just because you're an extrovert, it doesn't mean that you are, in my opinion at least, it doesn't mean that you are just this. You might give off or exude this aura of
Yeah.
confidence,
Yeah.
but that saying "fake it until you make it." I mean, it's a truism.
So is he confident?
I think I think Mitchell is very good at putting on a presentation of confidence, which comes from anybody who's done any stage work. Like
Hmm.
you can't get on stage if you can't find, like, even someone who plays a very neurotic character has to be confident about that character on stage, right?
Hmm.
So there is always a confidence that comes with being a performer, and Mitchell is the consummate performer. So um, I do think that he has stage confidence, and this is actually an
Hmm.
interesting distinction.
Yeah.
Um, there, in my opinion, there is a very real difference between stage confidence and actual confidence.
Hmm.
It's weird for me when I get on stage because I do a lot of improv. Um, I feel safer on stage than when I
Yeah.
do off stage. Even though when I'm on stage, there's an audience watching me do what I do, it feels like a safe space in a really, really weird way. And so I feel way more confident on stage than off stage.
I think I don't know. I can't speak for all actors and all.
Oh, sure,
In
this
my
is very much me projecting onto Mitchell.
yeah, but I think the stage version of you is vastly different than the private version of you. I think you're just speaking to that. I mean, it's just you have a different. Your mind is in a different place because you're performing in front of a audience. You're not doing anything intimate as far as talking one on one with somebody. You're projecting to an entire audience, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how am I guessing that wrong? I mean, is
No,
that
no, absolutely not. I mean, there's I don't want to get too deep into improv theory here, but there's a book by Keith Johnstone, who's one of the kind of modern inventors of improv. And his book Impro, there's a whole chapter that talks about masks,
yep?
metaphorically and literally. And at first, I thought, man, this is super weird. But when I got through that section of the book, it was absolutely fascinating how masks, whether you're wearing one metaphorically or like literally, it changes the nature of how you interact
Mm-hmm.
with um, with an audience, and you naturally assume a character. Um, and so yes, that's absolutely true. The way I interact with people on stage versus interacting with someone in a one-on-one environment is very, very different. And I will say that I do know people who And maybe I just don't know them that well, I guess, is possible too. But I don't think so. But I do know some people who are very much what you see is what you get, right?
Yeah.
They come off stage and that's what they're like off stage.
Hmm.
And that's definitely not who I am. And probably because I wrote the character, it's not who Mitchell is either. I think if you could get, behind the paper bag, Mitchell would be an extremely different person than what he presents himself as. And honestly, Mitchell is sort of the classic all the world's a stage kind of thing. He
Hmm.
very much always feels like he's on stage.
So, so when Jane meets him in his bar, um, that's the real Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean that we will probably ever know. I don't know that I really want to. I mean, maybe at some point down the road we explore it, but right now I think that the Mitchell that we see is the real Mitchell. That's all we're gonna see of him.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
know. Again, like when The Simpsons started back in what '89, it was a show about a family of five, and now 30 years later, they're doing episodes about characters, and The Simpsons aren't even in it any. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
you if you go long enough, you start branching out of a need to keep things fresh and tell different stories.
I gotta
Um,
say, I mean, just based on the initial script and subsequent scripts that you've written, I like how I like Mitchell's persona and how he is pretty much this. He has the same tonality every time you see him. Like there's an expectation that's kind of laid out
yep.
when you first as a viewer see him, as well as Jane. You're meeting him through Jane's eyes, and he's always the same all
Hmm.
the way. He never has another side of him. He's like kind of got this one note, but it's a very interesting one note.
And that's my intention for the foreseeable future.
Cool.
I don't imagine, like I said, at this point, ever spending any time really diving into who he is underneath the bag. Um, but that character is there, and I think I know what that character is. I know what Mitchell does at night when he goes to sleep, um, and what he dreams about. But in general, it's not really. I don't find it to be all that useful for the stories we want to tell right now.
Hmm.
Oh, you just wiped everything out. Is there a?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about. Well, we went through. We're talking about up here, right, in
Yeah,
this area.
yeah,
So like, I kind of wanted for fun, just sketch out like an idea, like from the inside. Like that's the clock.
right.
There is. I don't know how we're. I don't know how. I don't even know why I'm going to pull this. How I'm going to pull this off, but there is some sort of ability for it to let light come in,
Yeah.
and then Mitchell's got his posters and all kinds of stuff inside the place.
Well,
Um,
I like the idea that is actually a window, one of those circular windows that you see in colonial houses,
mhm. And he
and
just sits there and hangs out.
yeah, and he's sort of installed that clock in the window, right?
And this is where he gets his. Maybe there's a desk here, and
Yeah,
he writes all
exactly.
his stuff.
Yeah, and this
You
is
know,
where he workshops his material.
yeah. And then it comes down to just like trinkets and all kinds of weird stuff all over the
Yeah,
place.
this is what you're drawing there is kind of what I had in my head. It's I mean I'm not even joking. The desk underneath the circular window, and you would
Yeah,
almost like I mean we could get really moody with it if we wanted to, and I'm just imagining a shot of him furiously scribbling on a notepad with a single desk lamp looking down on the paper. Meanwhile, the light of the sun comes in through the circular window and the shadow of his clock hand slowly makes its
yeah,
way across his face, right? Like you can get
yeah,
really really moody with it and really set a claustrophobic intimate tone if you wanted to. But if we were to do that, and I think it's a great shot, it has to resolve to some sort of really dumb joke though, right? It has to
yeah,
resolve into a reversal of some sort.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we think it's all very serious and Mitchell's doing something, and then at the end of the day, he's like writing all work and no play makes Mitchell a dull boy or something really stupid like
that would
that.
be really funny actually if
So
it was something along those lines.
yeah,
But yeah, yeah, I think that would be hilarious. I don't know when you're gonna we don't actually, as far as I know, we don't have this, like this whole evolution of Mitchell having his own little attic based in the clock kind of came in last week, as far as I can recall. I don't remember us thinking about it that far ahead.
No,
Maybe.
it came into existence when you drew that that sort of overhanging feature of his porch. Um, once you drew that, I immediately saw that desk underneath the circular window, like immediately. So
Yeah, so there we go. We have a little bit of a rough sketch
yeah,
as far as
yeah,
the interior. Yeah, I think this kind of captures. Yeah, I think that sort of works now. Whether when, like I said, like when we get to that point, we'll flesh it out even farther. But as a sketch, I think it's working. Um, here's something else I wanted to show you too.
yeah.
I'm kind of busy here, kind of doodling other stuff, and
Holy
I've now,
moly!
yeah, I started. We went from gray box last week to now. I'm actually modeling the town. Now
Wow.
so yeah, I wanted to get
Did
your take on
you
this.
did you model those houses, or did you get it as a part of like a package or something?
No, I model these
Oh,
houses.
cool. Very
Uh,
cool.
Now these houses actually, oddly enough, these houses are all based on the same house.
Yeah,
You
I
see
can
the
see
same
that.
doors,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything. But the whole point is, it's no longer gray box. Now it is generic Western style kind of houses that I'm trying to kind of give us.
That's very cool.
So this kind of at least gives us more of a. This helps us kind of feel. It'll as we'll revisit this, through the upcoming weeks, and I'm going to keep fleshing out even more as we go. But yeah, so this is kind of again, Clamby's in the purple square. There will be Tinsel and Clamby coming into town.
Oh, it looks like you've
Right
already got a
here,
camera placed too. I was going to ask about that.
yeah, well, I'll get to that eventually, but here's where the prickly pear's at. Here's where
Okay.
French cuisine's at.
Okay.
Now, you'll see that I added a few more extra houses over here
Yeah.
and buildings. This is because when she goes through the whole sequence inside Act Two, dealing with the warhog, she breaks out of here and runs down the street, and then goes down this alley over here. You can see my mouse, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So she goes down this alley here, and then that's where more action comes out, and then she runs down the street to Mitchell's house, which is right here.
Right.
Um, so I added more houses because there's a scene where we have a whole bunch of townspeople that are watching here and that are peeking out through the windows, and I want to make sure we have enough houses to sort of have them shut the windows as they go by, as she tries to run away from the next warhog and the next piece of danger.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So there's some
Cool.
little things here and there that I kind of added to the town, but the basic landmarks like the sheriff's place. We had Aunt Betty's Vittles over here. I think
Yep. Yep.
she's
That's
one of
where
these
Viddy's. That's
houses.
where Aunt Betty lives.
Yeah. So we have some stuff kind of going on, but let me open up an actual house. I'll make sure to save it. Yeah,
You only
so
make that mistake once.
yeah, but yeah, the house is pretty much it's built with it's got these wood paneling kind of things. Let me do a render real quick.
So,
And
are the did you build out the roof tiles by hand, or was that some sort of a preset that you were able to use?
I've been using a lot of I've been watching a lot of tutorials online for Blender.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy named I can't pronounce his name. Impinzizia. I'm awful. Let me see if I have it here.
It's all right.
Let me look him up here. I'm pretty sure I have him still on my list. Yeah, this guy. Infenzia. Anyways, he's terrific. He's a low poly. I call him a low poly master with Blender.
Hmm.
He's terrific. He does a really good job. I've learned a lot from just watching him the past few months. But yeah, he just does these 10-minute modeling challenges where he'll model like a dragon, or he'll model a squid or an octopus, and he gives himself like a 10-minute timer. So he actually illustrates what he's doing by speaking and actually giving you a visual of his key commands as he does his
Oh
work.
wow, wow.
So I recommend anybody's trying to get into 3D and they're using Blender to look him up, because you might be able to pick up a lot of things, because you get information in a couple of different ways, which I think is useful for your brain to kind of digest stuff. So yeah, just a side note.
That's pretty cool though.
Let me see here.
And
There's
then
a way.
are you just scaling the houses when you bring them in?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm going to do now, let me see if I can kind of do a rotation here. So you see, I've kind of built up the house with just a couple of wood panels. Like I said, the houses are on the start of the show, so I want to do something that's kind of quick that I can scale and do stuff with pretty quickly and build out our town. But at the same time, I want to have some detail in them, so when people are looking at a particular scene and their eyes are wandering, then they got something to kind of work with. Let me see if I can play with this a little bit here. So yeah, let's say I want to make this house longer. I can just kind of go, I can kind of stretch it out that way. And I can reposition the door on the x-axis. Push it over here. I could duplicate more windows if I want to. So I've gotten to a point now where, like I said again, I've kind of gotten used to working this way, but it's mainly based on just watching a lot of videos online.
Cool.
But yeah, if we do a render, let me show you a render real quick. So the lighting's terrible there. So let me see if I can fix the lighting. Where are you, light? Let's see here. We'll go along the y-axis. There we go. And we'll do another render. All right, that's better. We'll zoom in a little bit. So yeah, there we go. So now this type of shadiness going on here is still in 3D mode. I'm eventually gonna try to find a recipe for the show where it's two-dimensional, completely 2D.
Okay.
But it'll still have the shading, but it'll all be much more flat.
Okay.
It's already kind of flat now. It's already kind of working, but I want it to be even more simplified. But we'll get there eventually. Anyways, but your thoughts. I heard some of your thoughts because you're kind of taking it in. But anything else you're kind of seeing as I'm showing you this stuff?
No, I'm just was impressed with how quickly you came up to speed on it. I mean, this seems like it's really paying off. I mean, if you can build out Dry Gulp Gorge this way, then you can basically set the camera wherever you want, and then you just render out that scene, and you're in good shape.
All part of our evil plan to that way we can, like I said, I'm a lazy animator here. It's only me, so I don't want to have to draw the houses more than I need to.
Sure.
So if I draw them once in 3D, we're golden, right?
Sure.
I mean,
no, I remember years ago when I still lived in California, I was collaborating with an animator down there who was trying to break into writing, and he was an in-betweener. No, he wasn't. He wasn't an in-betweener. He was a keyframe artist for the Penguins of Madagascar TV show.
Uh-huh.
And it was really interesting while we were working on outlines for a couple of episode pitches, and none of them went on anywhere, unfortunately, but I learned a lot about how you direct cartoons in terms of making sure that you only go to a new location that you haven't been to before if you have the budget for it. Yeah. So, like, if you've got an episode, like, don't go to an ice cream parlor unless the ice cream parlor is a part of the whole season. Or, like, it's like a major part of the episode, right? Like, they don't want to have to build an entire ice cream parlor for a single scene.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also, like, being really aware of where you're pointing the camera and that kind of thing. Because even with 3D, right, like, the Penguins of Madagascar show was in a zoo, but they don't have every aspect of the zoo rendered out, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you can't point, I don't remember specifically, but, like, you couldn't point the camera in a particular, like, northwestern direction at a low angle because they hadn't built out geography or topology in that region, right? So it was really interesting working with him on those episode pitches.
Yeah, that's the same thing, like with animation and also with game design too. The same thing. You don't want to have to model stuff that you don't need because you don't. With game design, there is differences because you're trying to take in consideration the processor and whatever you're designing it for. But with
Yeah.
animation, it's kind of the same thing in a way where you need to be economical with your time and your budget because sure we can render out 50 million more other houses, but then we'll never get done with anything. You know?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, with games, it's even like it's way more complicated if you're going to do real time cutscenes because not
Mm.
only do you have to worry about those types of camera positions and like we don't have any, we've not built out any geography for that region, but you also have
Yeah.
to think about characters. I remember working on one game called Murdered Soul Suspect where the cinematics director wanted to do. It was a really interesting shot. There was a character in a hospital, mental health facility, and she was in a hospital bed with her knees pulled up to her chest, and her hospital bed door, her bedroom door opened suddenly, right? And he wanted to put the camera low on the bed, right, to make it this kind of low angle, not quite her POV, but he wanted to make it intimate, so he wanted to put the camera right next to her body, so almost like you were from the POV of a teddy bear on her bed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was a good shot. It was a really interesting shot, but it was really hard to do because it exposed a couple of things. Like, because it was an in-game cutscene, putting the camera that close to the character's feet exposed how low resolution her shoes were.
Yeah.
So you could
Yeah.
really see the low fidelity of the shoes. And then also the mocap, it exposed a floating point error in the mocap where her feet weren't being anchored properly. And so small fluctuations in the mocap data from when they had recorded it were causing her feet to slide around a little bit on the bed, even though she was supposed to be stationary, right?
Yeah.
And it's been so long. That game came out in like 2014 or something, so a really long time ago. And I think they used the shot, but they had to do a lot of extra work that they wouldn't have had to do if they had chosen a different camera angle to do it. But
Yeah.
in that instance, I think that the decision was made that it was worth the effort to do that shot. But yeah, I mean, video games, holy moly. Like, what a... Because I did cinematics production on the game Infamous 2, and it was just... Whew, man, talk about challenging.
Yeah. So I'm for us for Calamity Jane. I'm trying to find ways to cut some corners, but still keep up a semblance of quality. But at the same time, I need to be economical
Sure.
with stuff. So backgrounds, there's a vision I have for it, and it will get there. Like I said, from last week to this week already, you've seen we gone from gray box to now there's houses. You know,
Yeah.
but they'll get some individual features to it. But I'm just trying to think ahead of how I'm gonna. Now that I have the DNA built, now I can actually, I have a window built. Now I can multiply that window and I can change colors on it and kind of change it up so each house looks different. But yet they all have the same DNA.
Mm-hmm.
They were already modeled once, but now I'm kind of tweaking it a little bit. You just saw how I made a rambling house. And, if Calamity's driving by the house, you're not going to spend much time looking at it and realize, and see that it's the same house because, especially when we get closer to end production, that house that rambling house would change with the roof being a different type of, might be a flat roof, but the core house itself with the wood boards, everything will be the same. But,
So, have you thought about like handling depth of field and going in for medium close-ups, and you get a nice portrait, so you get the soft background and things like that? Would you do that in the render for the 3D, or would you do that in post-production?
So, anybody who's been kind of with us at the beginning probably can recall that we've had our sensibilities, and this is partially my fault, but our sensibilities were kind of going old school Hanna-Barbera, like
Yep.
Thunder the Barbarian, or what's it, the Herculoids.
Yep, Herculoids, absolutely.
Yeah, and so their backgrounds are so simple
Yeah.
and very painterly
Yep.
that they didn't think about. I don't think they had to deal. I don't think they were consciously dealing with depth of field. Whereas now with where we're at, we can do that. We
Right.
can have a lot of fun with that type of stuff. And again, Hercules wasn't done with 3D, and here we are doing 3D mixing with 2D. And so I'm game for any of that stuff, but I'm trying to still kind of keep that. Like we about a month ago we had the Warhog scene where
Mhm.
they're running on that background, the background. My goal is to kind of have that kind of a feel to it, but I am not I'm not setting anything in stone. Like, if we could have a depth of field if it helps with our story and
Mm-hmm.
telling something, or bringing attention to something else that's important, whereas the background's not as important. And it gives me an out because I can be a little bit more lax with that background. Um, if we have depth of field or blurring and all that kind of stuff, it does add layering, adds other levels to our cartoon. So I haven't. I've thought about it back. I've kind of hemmed and hawed back and forth, and so obviously, Eric and I will you and I will talk about it
Well,
going forward. But I'm all for it too. I think we
yeah,
could do it. We have the tech to do
yeah,
that.
cool, very
So
cool.
yeah, it's a long-winded answer. We're getting to nowhere.
No, no, I think that was a perfectly reasonable answer. And I think it was a pretty good way to wrap up. Unless there's anything else that you wanted to show before we closed out.
Now, I think we're at a good spot here. I mean, this is already. I'm at. This was. I was aiming for this to talk to you about this week, and we got there. And next week, I have some things in mind, but sometimes we'll hit them, sometimes we don't. But
Yeah,
yeah, we're in a good spot.
excellent. Well, then thanks everybody for watching. Whenever you do, whether you watch it live or after the fact, you can find us on Patreon.com. Just look for Calamity Jane Adventure Hour. Same with Facebook. Calamity Jane Adventure Hour. Same with YouTube and all that jazz. And we're here every week at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Have a good night, everybody. James, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, everybody have a safe and pleasant week as much as you can, and we'll catch up next week.
Indeed. All right. Good night, everybody.